I ventured out today to get a Mother's Day gift for my wife. It was kind of scary. I saw a lot of cell phone use that was actually dangerous. Normally I don't mind cell phone use too much, but you have to be smart about it. So in the first part of this video, I'm going to talk about things that you shouldn't do if you're using a cell phone. In the next part, I'm going to talk about how to look at your state's rules to see if they allow amateur radio use, CB use, FRS, GMRS, whatnot. I'm going to give you about 3 rules for using a cell phone in your car. If you absolutely decide you need to, then follow these 3 rules and you will be a lot safer. I almost saw a couple people crash today. The first one is, do not use your cell phone while you're making a turn. I saw a guy look at his cell phone 3 times during a turn, and I don't think he knew what lane he was in. So number 2 is, don't use your cell phone. And when I say use, I mean looking at it. Don't use your cell phone when you're coming to a stop. Things can change at stoplights. You'll look down at your phone, you'll look up, you'll see the person's brake lights are on ahead of you. You'll look down, you'll look back up, you'll see that they're off, and then you'll look back down at your phone and your mind will think, oh, he's moving, so I don't need to slow down as fast. Well, maybe he just inched forward a couple inches. And then you run into the back of him. The third rule is, don't use your phone at a stoplight if there's no one stopped behind you. So the car in front of you is stopped, or you're stopped at the light, and then wait for someone to stop behind you before you use your phone. Because what can happen is, you're using your phone, nobody's behind you, the light turns green, you don't notice, and the car that's speeding up behind you for the green light doesn't realize he's going to crash into the back of you. So using a two-way radio that doesn't have a screen to look at doesn't cause as much distraction. It can still be distracting, but state laws realize this, and they've put exceptions into the law. So before we look at some sample laws, let's talk about why it's not as distracting as a cell phone. One is, you can keep your eyes on the road the whole time. You're grabbing and keying a mic, and also they found if you're like talking on the cell phone versus talking on the radio, people talking on a two-way radio are more inclined to interrupt the conversation themselves to focus on their driving. Where we're so used to using telephones and it's a duplex conversation, meaning both people can talk and be heard at the same time, that people want to continue the conversation so they can get distracted that way. A simplex, where only one person can talk at a time and the other person has to listen, is a little less distracting. You're waiting for your turn. So it's not uncommon in mobile radio to talk to somebody, stop talking, and then 30 seconds later, a minute later, they come back on and say, sorry, I had to deal with traffic. And then they can continue their conversation. So in Georgia, the code section is 40-6-241. So it says, as used of in this code section, the term. So the first half of part 3 talks about things that do fall under this code. And then the next slide, we're going to show the things that don't fall under this code. Such terms shall not include a radio, citizen band radio hybrid, commercial two-way radio communication device or its functional equivalent, subscription-based emergency communication device, prescribed medical device, amateur or ham radio device, or in-vehicle security navigation or remote diagnostic system. So the things in the personal radio service would fall under the citizen band radio hybrid section. Now let's look at Illinois. They do it a little differently. Where Georgia used the definition to exclude it, they actually exclude it later. So section 12-610-2 electronic communications devices. This section does not apply to (7) a driver using two-way or citizen band radio services. 8. A driver using two-way mobile radio transmitters or receivers for licensees of the Federal Communications Commission in the amateur radio service. So on 7 it says citizen band radio services. It's plural, which leads me to believe they meant to say in the personal radio service, Part 95. There's Part 10, which I'm not going to read through, but for some reason it mentions citizen band radio again. So if you're on the road and you get pulled over and a police officer thinks that your two-way radio falls under the hands-free device because you've got something in your hand and you're talking, you can try to guide him to this or get the ticket and fight it in court. This is one of the things I'd probably try to educate politely the officer on. Sometimes they'll look up the code, sometimes they won't. So just look up your own state law, see how they go through it, and if you're traveling in other states, it doesn't hurt to look at theirs. Have fun on the radio.